Okay, so here we are. We've got all of the tape pulled off, and we're going to do the trimming process here. I'm going to walk you through it real fast because it's super duper simple. We're going to take our scissors and cut the foot area here, just pretty close to the body of the tiki, but not at all touching it. We're looking for probably, width of a fingernail all the way around, by width of the whole fingernail, not just the little pokey part. All the way around there, and we've got it just kind of straight sticking out there. Now the reason I'm not cutting it any closer to the body of the tiki here is that I may, and in fact I am planning to go around this. You can see there's a little bit of tape left on there. I'll get that off in a minute. But I'm going to put a bead of glue all the way around this, and all the way around the body of the tiki after I've trimmed it, so that it just kind of acts as a sealant, closes the structure and gives it that much more strength. And a little bit of strength is important because when I go to put the skin on this thing, it softens it rather a lot. And if the structure is already fairly solid, what that does is it holds it up when the skin softens, and it doesn't collapse or bend in ways that you don't want. And that's pretty useful to be able to hold itself up while you're doing that. There's things you can do to kind of mitigate that, but one of the first things we do is we put a bead of glue around everything. It just seals it up, makes it good and solid. You see our tiki is starting to look more and more like a tiki. This is our model. You can see we've kind of got it. It's obviously going to be a lot smaller, but this tiki is going to have a pretty common shape. It could go that way, I suppose. We might make it that. I don't know. We'll see how it turns out after we get ready to put eyes on it. First, let's do the mouth. Make sure I'm in the video side there. Let's turn it ever so slightly. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Okay, so we're going to trim the mouth. It's a little trickier, especially on the back side. People get really frustrated because it ends up being very choppy. And if you're really attentive, you'll see I've salvaged a lot of the tape that I pulled off. That's not an accident. That's because I like to recycle and reuse as much as possible. A lot of this tape is not reusable because the softness of the paper that the tiki's made out of, it just tore a little tiny bit of the paper off every time I pulled off some tape, and it's not conducive to it. It's no big deal. If it is, great. If it isn't, well, that's okay too. We salvage when we can, and when we can't, we accept reality. Now, this is the scariest part most people trim on, is the back side here, because your scissors are more likely to interfere with your hand motion. But do not trim this any closer than about the width of your pinky finger at the very closest. And that is so that it maintains its structural integrity. Once we have put a skin on it, we can trim it a little closer if we want to, but until the skin's on it, we leave that no closer than probably that right there. Now I'm going to round it, and I will cut it closer here in the mouth, the front of the mouth, because that's a pretty hard puddle of glue right there that I can trim into, and I can cut that pretty close and it won't hurt anything. But generally speaking, the glue is thinner around especially the back side here, and we want to make sure we've got plenty of paper there to support it. All right, let's cut this side. Got a little tiki music going on here. I have no idea what it is, and it's just kind of fun. And now that it's late November, I kind of like to think about summertime and warm water and all that happy stuff, and it's just not happening for us. We're dealing with the Rona, we're staying isolated, and we're staying warm. So here it is cut up. I've got some trimming to do here. I'm going to open that mouth up. I am going to trim the mouth all the way to the edge of it, just right at it. in the front because I want to have a little bit of an opening there. I don't have to have a whole lot, but a little bit is just, that's what I'm going to do. So just trim it off until you get it just how you like it. And that's how you do it. Now, it helps if you've got pretty sharp scissors, and I kind of do. These are a little bit better than your standard little cheap scissors. Not a lot better, but if you've got pretty good scissors, it does help a lot. Watch your fingers there, don't want to cut my finger off. And see, I'm starting to cut that curve there, and this curve, I don't want to leave a corner right there, because what happens is if you leave a corner there, it makes the finished tiki looks like he's got a paper tube in his mouth, like a toilet paper tube or something, and nobody wants that. So we're going to cut a curve in it, and this curve is pretty crude right now because I haven't, but I'll trim that and smooth it out, and you can see it's starting to be rounded. It's tricky to cut with this part of the scissors, but you can if you're patient, and mostly I'm patient. Try to cut only a little bit at a time. If you try to make big cuts in it, what happens? You end up cutting in further than you meant to, and it's like, oh, uh-oh, now I've got a problem. So what we're doing is we're avoiding problems by cutting just a little bit at a time. Cutting in there, and got that nice smooth curve to it, and that's what we want. The curve has a little more flow visually. You can see this side I've got it nice and curved, and this side is still chopped up, and I'm going to smooth that out. And bing, and there it is, curved. And this has got a bit of a point right out here. I'm just going to angle my scissors a little bit so that I can get in that. I find that angling my scissors instead of trying to cut straight helps me a lot to get onto the edge of the paper. And you just trim off a wee little bit at a time, and you get slowly, you get the shape that you're looking for. If you try and take off big whacks of it, it tends to be a little more abrupt, and you don't get as smooth a curve. And this one's going to work pretty good. Just cut that out there. I do want it to be fairly consistent from one side to the other, so I'm going to keep trimming this one until I get it where I want it. It may take a few minutes, but this is not a drag race, so if it takes it a few minutes, it takes it a few minutes. No big deal. What we're looking for is a consistent kind of rounded shape. And you can see it, there it is, kind of a rounded shape. Now I might think later on I want to open that mouth up a little more, I don't know, kind of see it's got a little bit of an overbite, and I think we're going to go with that. That looks to me, it's pretty consistent. It's a little thicker here than it is there. We've got a little bit of a bump there. I'll just trim that off. Just like that. You want to be careful, because if you angle it in there too much, you cut a notch out of it. And you got to smooth that out. You end up cutting closer and closer and closer. That's not what you want to do. There it is. And you might get these little flowers here. Not a big deal. You can, if you have a box knife, it's pretty sharp, you can just trim it with that. But just kind of cut right along. And I don't have one handy. I'm not gonna worry about it. But there it is. There's my base tiki. You can see the top of it needs to be. I'll clean up that curve cut a little bit. And there it is. There's your basic tiki structure ready for the next step.